Hello again, 240. In this video, we'll continue in Chapter 12 with the Magic of Parity, the National Football League. And the leadership of baseball proved unable to emulate the successful policies designed to assure financial parity of all franchises that enabled the National Football League to enjoy economic success in the front office and competitive balance on the field. Ever since the 1960s, most NFL games were sellouts and television ratings remained high. When Pete Rozelle became commissioner of the NFL in 1960, he preached the doctrine of competitive balance and implemented it effectively with sharing of television fees and gate receipts. This balance is reflected in the fact that between 1967 and 2010, 28 different teams have played in at least one Super Bowl. Houston, Cleveland, and Detroit have not. That did not mean, however, that certain well-managed and well-financed teams did not enjoy extended periods of success. During the early 1960s, the Green Bay Packers set the standard for excellence under head coach Vince Lombardi, winning the NFL championship in 1961, 2, and 5, and also 66 and 7, and then they defeated the Chiefs and the Raiders in the first two Super Bowls in 67 and January of 68. In 1959, he had inherited a team that had gone through 11 consecutive seasons without a winning record. But within a few years, the small city of Green Bay had become Title Town, USA. Lombardi's success was his ability to evaluate talent and then get the best out of his players by emphasizing precise execution and total effort on every play. And there's Lombardi with quarterback Bart Starr, fullback Jim Taylor, and halfback Paul Hornung. They were the mainstays of the team through the 60s on offense. Although the National Football League had enjoyed success since its merger with the upstart American Football League in 1966, the road nonetheless was often rocky. During the 1980s, the league endured two strikes that disrupted regular season play. In 1982, the league played only a 9-game regular season, and in 1987, the owners hired replacement players. Players' union officials called them scads for 3 games before complex economic issues were settled, with neither side able to claim a clear victory. Although the two strikes faded into the background, they underscored that, with increased success and rising revenues, the stakes for owners, players, and host cities had risen dramatically. The financial success of the expanded NFL stimulated 2 rival leagues, both of which sought to take advantage of television. In 1974, Los Angeles businessman Gary Davidson announced the formation of the World Football League, the WFL. It featured teams with such exotic names as the Shreveport Steamer, the Philadelphia Bell, and the Chicago Fire. Although 12 teams managed to create a few ripples in the waters of professional football, the anticipated big television contract was not forthcoming, and the WFL disappeared after 2 desultory seasons, 1974 and 75. 10 years later, the United States Football League made its appearance, and this is the logo of the Hawaiians, who played in the WFL in 1974 and 5, and their quarterback in their second season was from my hometown, Rick Casada, formerly of Syracuse University, and he played for that partial season in Hawaii. And with the USFL, such high-profile owners as financier Donald Trump, it initially seemed to pose a substantial threat to the NFL. The USFL played its first season in the spring and early summer months and attracted an average attendance of over 20,000 fans. However, it decided to move its games to the fall and challenge the NFL in several cities. The NFL naturally fought back, and its retaliatory action stimulated a $600 million antitrust suit by the new league, charging the NFL with attempting to prevent its securing a major television contract. The NFL faced possible treble damages of $1.6 billion. After 2 months of trial, the jury agreed with the USFL and found the NFL guilty, assessing it the magnanimous amount of $1 in damages, and when that was tripled in accordance with the law, the USFL walked away with a check for $3. Shortly after the new league vaporized, the jury apparently felt that the NFL had conspired to restrict the USFL from access to the networks, but that the new league, by deciding to change its original philosophy of playing its games between spring and fall, had broken faith with fans and had demonstrated bad business judgment. The USFL's most significant impact was to break the NFL's unwritten agreement with college football not to draft or sign college players until their 4 years of eligibility had expired. The NFL, which had refused to establish any form of a costly minor league development team structure, preferred to let the colleges do the work for them. In return, the league had not drafted college players until they had exhausted their eligibility. However, there was no legal basis to deny playing opportunities to underclassmen, and in 1983, Donald Trump signed junior running back and Heisman Trophy winner Herschel Walker to a New Jersey General's contract off the campus of the University of Georgia for $4 million, seemingly an astronomical salary for professional football at that time, and several underclassmen were drafted thereafter. While the two rival leagues caused occasional heartburn at NFL headquarters, issues surfaced within the league that were of greater import. The most significant of these were its distractions was the work of the brilliant but obstreperous Al Davis of the Oakland Raiders. Ever since the merger of the AFL and the NFL in 1966, Davis had demonstrated his fiery independence, accentuated with his penchant for filing lawsuits. In 1963, he became the head coach of the struggling Oakland Raiders of the AFL, and he produced a 10-4 record in his first season. And in 1966, he became the commissioner of the AFL, and his negotiations led to the merger with the NFL. But when that deal was consummated, he apparently was upset by the indemnities that the NFL extracted from the AFL, as well as the decision that Pete Rozelle, and not he, would become commissioner of the merged league. Davis embraced the image of the Raiders as a renegade outfit, often signing players who had previously encountered discipline problems with other teams, as well as some whose encounters with law enforcement and histories of drug use and heavy drinking were legendary. Kenny Stabler, John Matuzak, Lyle Alzado. They lost to the Green Bay in the '68 Super Bowl, but won the 1977 and 1981 Super Bowls. And when the Los Angeles Rams began exploring the possibility of leaving their longtime home in the Los Angeles Coliseum in 1979, Davis expressed interest in moving the Raiders to Southern California. He knew, of course, that NFL policies required that the owners approve, but he forged ahead and dared the league to stop him. When he signed the first legal papers with Los Angeles officials, lawsuits flew quickly and furiously. In 1982, a federal court in Los Angeles ruled that Davis was correct in charging the NFL with antitrust violations and denying the Raiders' right to move to Los Angeles. And in April of 1983, a second jury not only upheld the original verdict, but assessed the NFL $35 million in damages. It was the biggest setback in Rozelle's 29 years at the NFL helm. And then after the '84 Super Bowl, Rozelle had to present the Super Bowl trophy, the Vince Lombardi trophy, to Al Davis. The Raiders never caught on with fans in L.A., and when various new stadium proposals fizzled and an extensive remodeling of the Coliseum was rebuffed, Davis cut ties, and he made a sweetheart deal with Alameda County commissioners and moved the Raiders back to Oakland in 1995. And shortly thereafter, when ticket sales did not produce sellouts in a remodeled Oakland Coliseum, seating expansion being part of the deal to lure the Raiders back to Oakland, Davis promptly sued the county. Following the 2002 season, the renegade team that Davis had long touted as having pride and poise and commitment to excellence, just win, baby, another slogan, they finally returned to the Super Bowl, only to be soundly trounced 48-21 by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, now coached by John Gruden, a bright and promising young head coach who had left the Raiders just 10 months earlier because of his difficulties in working under the aging and increasingly cranky Raiders managing general partner, Al Davis. Gruden is back coaching the Oakland Raiders now, and new managing general partner Mark Davis is moving the Raiders to Las Vegas in 2019. One of Pete Rozell's lasting legacy was his commitment to the proposition that all teams should have an opportunity for success. 5 years after Rozell retired, new commissioner Paul Tagliabue, an attorney by profession, added to Rozell's legacy by working with the NFL Players Association and its director, former Oakland Raider Gene Upshaw, ironically enough, to maintain a highly competitive environment. In the new collective bargaining agreement concluded in 1994, the NFL took a major step to address an imbalance that many critics had come to believe threatened Rozell's equity policy. Their target was free-spending owner of the San Francisco 49ers, Eddie DeBartolo, whose large budgets provided the players for 5 Super Bowl titles between 1982 and 1995. It was rumored around the league that the 49ers had better backup players than many of their opponents had starters, and they had picked up quarterback Steve Young upon the folding of the USFL, and he backed up legendary Joe Montana for many seasons before he finally took the reins and led the 49ers to their final title in '95. And this was linked to the new collective bargaining agreement, established a firm salary cap that limited the total amount that a team could spend on its payroll. The owners recognized that DeBartolo's pursuit of free agents had driven up salaries across the league. The new salary cap was linked to a complicated computer-driven formula based upon anticipated league revenues from television contracts and ticket sales, with 63% of the amount reserved for players' compensation or salaries. In return for agreeing to such a cap, players received the right to free agency after 4 years under contract to a team. The players also received a guaranteed minimum salary. After so many years played, you get X salary. In 1994, when the new agreement went into practice, each team was limited to $35 million in player compensation, a figure that grew with inflation. And with increased television revenues and higher ticket prices, it went up to $85 million for the 2005 season and $123 million in 2009. The impact of the salary cap was immediate. All teams were permitted to spend the same amount for player salaries, which meant that the expertise of the front office in drafting college players and signing free agents and the skill of the coaching staff could turn a losing team into a winning team very quickly. It also seemed to mean that the likelihood of one team dominating the league for any extended period of time was going to be unlikely. Although the sustained competitiveness of several well-managed franchises, the Patriots, Colts, Steelers, and Ravens, and we talked about the Ravens before, for example, seemed to defy that generalization. And the Patriots are still doing it today.